the subsequent indictment on, or the additional indictment on the sequestering of boxes of classified documents in Mar-a-Lago, the obstruction of that investigation, cumulatively require the president to have an explanation for why he's the first president in history to be multiply indicted. And not just the fact of the indictment, but the fact that multiple grand juries reviewing the evidence found probable cause to believe the President of the United States had committed many, many crimes. In order to explain that, the President has to create this narrative that the Justice Department was somehow improperly weaponized against him. Because he's the only president in history to be indicted multiple times. What other explanation could there be? Well, sometimes the simplest explanation is the most accurate, and the simple explanation here is he's the first president to commit these crimes while in office.
Welcome back to Insight News, where we break down the biggest political stories shaping America today. In a recent Senate hearing, Senator Adam Schiff delivered a scathing critique of how the Department of Justice is being utilized under the current administration. His speech raised major concerns about political interference, judicial impartiality, and the fundamental principle that no one is above the law. So, what did he say, and why does it matter? Let's break it down. According to Senator Schiff, there's been a calculated effort to construct a narrative, one that portrays the Department of Justice as being unfairly used against President Donald Trump. This, he argues, is not just about legal defense but about shaping public perception. Why? Because Trump is the first U.S. president in history to face multiple criminal indictments. Schiff suggests that instead of acknowledging the seriousness of these charges, ranging from the January 6th insurrection to obstruction and the mishandling of classified documents, Trump and his allies are working to discredit the entire justice system. Schiff contends that rather than being unfairly targeted, Trump is simply facing accountability like any other American would. But Schiff's concerns don't stop there. He claims that while Trump's allies accuse the DOJ of being weaponized against them, they are actually the ones attempting to use it as both a sword and a shield. As a sword, he argues, they are pressuring the Justice Department to investigate political rivals or dismantle programs they disagree with.
But this narrative they have created also serves another purpose, and that is it allows them, in Orwellian fashion, to do what they have accused others of doing, but have accused falsely, and that is it allows them to weaponize the department, to use the department as a sword and as a shield. Now, as Sheldon Whitehouse has so ably described, they're using it as a sword to try to create criminal cases where none exist, as a predicate to, in the case of this environmental fund, to try to shut it down, to go after it. Where there is no probable cause, they ask multiple prosecutors and multiple magistrates to open an investigation, and finding no probable cause, they did their ethical duty and said, no, it simply doesn't exist. And so they're fired, and the case is shopped from prosecutor to prosecutor to prosecutor, from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, in an effort to use the department as a sword, to go after either programs the president doesn't like or political enemies. We have seen letters go out from the acting U.S. attorney in D.C., to Democratic members of Congress intended to chill their speech, intended to use the department as yet another vehicle of the president's power. But of course, they're not just using it as a sword, as a sword, but they're also using it as a shield.
Despite a lack of probable cause, Schiff points to instances where prosecutors and judges refuse to open cases due to insufficient evidence, only to be replaced or overridden until the administration got the outcome they wanted. At the same time, Schiff alleges the DOJ is also being used as a shield to protect political allies. He references a serious bribery and corruption case against New York's mayor, which was suddenly dismissed, without prejudice. Why does that matter? Because dismissing a case without prejudice means it can be refiled at any time, potentially giving the administration leverage over the mayor. Schiff argues that this move serves as a tool of control, sending a clear message: support the administration's policies, or face legal consequences.
In New York, where the Justice Department has intervened in a serious criminal case involving the mayor of New York, a corruption case, a bribery case, and moved to dismiss it. And why? Because the mayor is useful. He's useful to them in an unrelated policy matter, and that is immigration. So they moved to dismiss the case, and not just dismiss it, but dismiss it without prejudice, meaning they want to keep that case hanging over his head like a sword of Damocles, that should the mayor stop doing the president's bidding, they will let it drop. Is this where we are now, where the Justice Department can be so blatantly used as a mode of intimidation, as a mode of control, as a mode of making policy?
One of Schiff's most alarming warnings is about the role of the U.S. Supreme Court in this evolving landscape. A recent ruling granted the president near-total immunity in certain areas of executive power. Schiff argues that this effectively removes critical checks and balances, potentially allowing a president to use the Justice Department however they see fit, whether to pursue baseless prosecutions or shield themselves and their allies from accountability. In other words, Schiff suggests that this ruling erodes the post-Watergate reforms designed to prevent presidential corruption, creating a dangerous precedent.
Now, what has empowered all of this is a decision by the Supreme Court that gives a president immunity from criminal liability, but most particularly says in certain core areas of responsibility, the immunity is absolute. And here the Supreme Court of the United States said that when the president uses the Justice Department, he is absolutely immune. There could be no more frontal assault on the post-Watergate policy of having some division between the White House and the Justice Department than the Supreme Court of the United States saying, break down that wall, use the department any way you wish, create cases where there's no evidence, dismiss cases where there's plenty of evidence, and you will never face accountability.
Schiff also raises concerns about who is being placed in key DOJ positions. According to him, Trump's former personal lawyers, Pam Bondi, Todd Blanche, and John Sauer, are now being appointed to influential roles within the Justice Department. Schiff questions whether these individuals can separate their legal duty to the country from their past loyalty to Trump. Meanwhile, career prosecutors, ethics officials, and watchdogs, many of whom refuse to pursue baseless investigations, are reportedly being removed or pressured to resign. If true, this could fundamentally shift the DOJ's mission from impartial law enforcement to political enforcement. As Schiff puts it, democracy itself is at stake. If the DOJ becomes an instrument of political power rather than a fair and independent body, then lawmakers, journalists, and ordinary citizens could all be at risk. He warns that if the Senate continues confirming appointees who refuse to recuse themselves from conflicts of interest, and if the Supreme Court continues expanding presidential immunity, America may be heading toward a system where the rule of law is no longer guaranteed. So, what do you think? Is the Department of Justice being fairly administered, or is it being manipulated for political gain? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more in-depth political analysis. Thanks for watching Insight News, where we break down the facts so you can stay informed. See you next time.